if you are tired of this life, if this life is not what you thought it was, it's not turning out the way you wanted it to turn out. It's not turning out like the Kardashians. It's not turning out the way everyone else's life is turning out. Your life is awful. You're tired. You're weary. You're walking on the edge. You see the edge is right there. It's one or two more steps away. And it seems like life just keeps pushing you to that edge, and you really don't want to go, or maybe you do want to go. Folks, there's a way to avoid all of that. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Thank you for stopping by the Alabama Woodsman. If this is your first time here, I hope you can get something from this video. This video is actually made for you. And if you're a return viewer, thank you so much for coming back. Folks, this is not going to be my typical video. I was watching a YouTuber, a Christian YouTuber, and because I don't agree with everything he says, I'm not going to tell you who it was, but I can find something in his videos to use. I actually like him. I just don't agree with him on certain things. But he said, you know, if you're a Christian, you shouldn't really have a channel that's just one subject, okay? Like you wouldn't have a channel that's just about water baptism or whatever it is, healing, or you just wouldn't focus on that. You need to have a variety because when people surf, they may run across your variety. But if they don't care about your subject, they'll just move on. And it's not about likes and subscriptions. It's about sharing the word in a well-rounded manner. And so that's what I want to do. But I want to tell you a story first because I want to try to express to you how serious this subject matter is. So when I was a lawman, we used to do something called welfare checks. If somebody didn't hear from somebody, we'd get a call, hey, can you go by and check and see this, that, and the other, you know. A lot of times it'd be Sunday morning when mama hadn't heard from daughter or son, and they'd want us to go check and make sure they got home okay because they knew they were out partying. And sometimes, you know, we could tell mama, yeah, you know, he's fine, or she's fine. And sometimes we couldn't. But in this case, I got to check the welfare. So I get the call. I go to this part of the neighborhood. It's not a bad neighborhood in the day. At nighttime, it becomes a little rough. All right. And definitely not the worst part of town, but it was not a good part of town. So it's probably 1 o'clock maybe in the afternoon. It was a weekend. I was a junior officer, so I didn't have weekends off. I get the welfare check. I go to the neighborhood. I go to the house, and I see this man's truck. He's renovating this house. Now, back then we used to have what's called beepers, and if y'all don't know what a beeper is, you basically called this number, and you either put your number in it or whatever. It automatically generated your number. But this guy had a little box, kind of like maybe the size of a Tic Tac box or something, and your number would pop up, and he knew, hey, I need to call this number because my beeper went off. So his wife had been beeping him since lunch. I guess he was supposed to call her at lunch or something. I don't know. But she tells the dispatcher, hey, you know, my husband's working. It's not a good neighborhood. I've been beeping him. It's not like him not to call me back. Can you send an officer out there to see what's up? So I get there, and there's his truck, and there's his power tools on the front porch. They seem to all be there. There's only one set of footprints in the sawdust, which tells me he's been alone. There's not like somebody came up on him. But I'm calling out, hey, police, you know, because in the South, you're the police. Up north, you may be the police. But in your South, you're the police. And I have a story about that that's funny, but this is not the time or place. So I'm walking around the house. I go in the house. The floor's creaking. Hey, police, police. Sir, you okay? And I'm waiting to hear, because maybe he can't talk. Maybe he's going to signal me by, I'm calling and I'm listening. I'm calling and I'm listening. And it doesn't seem right. The guy's truck is here, but he's not, and he left all these valuable tools, all the tools of the trade that brings food and covering and shelter and clothing to his family. They're all here. It's not right. So I'm like, okay, this is not good. I need to start making sure this is not a crime scene. So now I'm watching where I walk. I'm walking along the edges of the room, so I'm not in the middle in case there might be a footprint that I don't see. I don't want to molest it or pervert it or alter it in any way. And I can't find the guy. And I don't know what's going on. I'm calling and I'm listening. So I go out the back door. I've not checked the back area. I'm thinking maybe, something happened. There's some woods back there. Maybe he went back there to relieve himself. And maybe he's gotten stuck or fallen or something, had a stroke or a heart attack or something. So I'm looking around and I see this cable that comes out of the power box. And it comes out and it hits the ground and it starts to run and it runs around the house. And I'm like, okay, I've not been around the west side of the house, so I'm going to go around the west side of the house. And I peek around the house and this cable goes into what's called a crawl space. Now the crawl space in this house is probably about 3 foot. And there's a little door, and the door has been removed, and the cable goes in there. So I'm like, gotta look under the house. So I get down on my hands and knees, which is not fun because now I'm going to have dirty knees on my nice, clean uniform. And look, officers are merciless. The jokes are going to be stupid. Anyway, I stick my head in the crawl space, and I find the guy. The guy's what we call DRT, dead right there. He is dead right there. No struggle, no fight, just DRT. And I notice as I look at him and I'm calling to him, he's on his left side and his right leg is up in the air like this. And that was kind of strange to me. Why he's on his left, but his right leg is kicked up in the air like this. It's very strange to me. Didn't put it together yet. My call numbers back then on that car was 85. I said, 85, can you send me the medics and send me a supervisor? Because I know after I've called him over and over and over and over and over, hey, sir, are you okay? Are you okay? And that leg's kick up like that. Something's not right, folks. We call this a clue. Get there, the medics show up. I'm like, man, I got a guy up under here. I think he's DRT. And they look, and they immediately know what's going on. They've seen more of this than I have. Now, folks, I saw death probably every week and a half, 2 weeks for 20 years. Sometimes it was natural. Sometimes it was accidental. Sometimes it was homicidal. Sometimes it was negligent. But about every week and a half in this city, and this is not even a big city compared to other cities, okay? It was there. It was always there. And today, it came to this man. So the medics run around. They pull the power. What had happened was he made this contraption. It was a mercury vapor light, a very bright light, if you don't know what that is. And he attached it to a rigid piece of conduit, which is a very strong piece of conduit that doesn't bend easily. And he ran the wires through the pole and out the bottom so that he wouldn't have to worry about the cable to the light dangling everywhere and getting snagged. It just came right through the pole and out the bottom. What happened was, after time, where the wire went into the mouth of the pole, the insulation became naked. And that hot wire touched the pole. And when he grabbed it, the electricity contracted all his muscles. And now he can't let go of that pole. He can't drop it because the electricity makes your muscles tense up. And now he's stuck on that pole. And it's wet underneath the house. It's a crawl space. It's slimy and wet and moist. And his left shoulder is dug into the dirt. And that electricity is running from his hand all through his arm, across his heart, and then out his shoulder into the earth. And it fried his heart. And that's why his leg was in the air, because when the muscles contracted, it stuck his leg up in the air, and that's the way he froze. I have no idea how long he was like that. Folks, death comes quickly. Someone makes up the statistics. You may think you have a long life ahead of you, and you may not. You know someone who died too early. You know someone who died suddenly. You know these people. It's just not been you yet. So as I was waiting on the medics to show up, I started thinking about that guy. What he might have said to his wife that morning. You know, did he kiss her goodbye? Did he make dinner plans with her for that night? He wouldn't be there. Did he normally come home and kiss her hello? Did she have dinner waiting for him? Wouldn't be that night. Everyone's life changed that day for him and that family. But this is what else kind of stuck in my memory. With any dead person I saw, you're now dead. What are you experiencing? Where are you? Most of the time, I think I could guess accurately. Sometimes I couldn't. I didn't know this man. Was he ready for his afterlife? Or did it take him by surprise? And at the very second I'm looking at him under the house, is he separated from God? Or is he with God? That is a huge question. Now, maybe you're not a Christian, and you think all this is nonsense. Christianity is nonsense. You believe in science and evolution and Big Bang Theory, expanding universe, whatever your theory may be. But I want you to just, for a minute, just listen and see if what I'm about to tell you makes sense. So we hear that there was a Big Bang and there was evolution. Now, the Big Bang Theory basically, okay, I'm not an expert on it, so I'm just going to talk in basics. Basically says that everything in existence, okay, was concentrated in this little bitty particle, and then there was this big bang, and boom, it all started to expand. Well, there's a huge problem with this theory. You see, there's this thing called the law of non-contradiction. And it can be applied in different ways, but here's how I'm going to apply it, and it's not a reach. See, as humans, we experience time, space, matter, and energy. Everywhere you look, it's either time-related, space, matter, or energy-related. Here's the problem. Time, space, matter, and energy cannot create itself. Nothing self-creates. In other words, let's say you have a marble, and you look at this marble did not create itself. It had to have an outside person, thing, entity that was smarter than the marble who made the marble. And we know that because the law of contradiction says that it can't create itself. Non-contradiction. the marble can't create itself because in order to create itself, it had to be present. And if it was present, it didn't need creation. You get in this weird loop. In order to create itself, it already had to be in existence, but it's not created itself yet. Folks, God is outside of time, space, and matter and energy. The earth and this little speck that was floating in space that exploded everywhere, where did that speck come from? It could not have created itself. This is a law of physics. This is science. It could not create itself. Nothing can create itself, because if it could create itself, that means it had to be in existence before its own creation. Folks, there has to be a God. Now, you may not like that. You may not like what God is, who he is, what he requires. Hey, I'm trying to tell you there is a God, and I just showed you with science. There is a God because nothing self-creates. Time, space, matter, and energy and matter, none of it created itself. God had to create it. All right, now this can pose a problem in the human mind because we all have a beginning and an end. To us, everything has a beginning and an end. That's the way we're made. That's the way we're built. That's the way our brain works. But not to God. So I said nothing creates itself, and that includes God. God didn't create himself, because that would mean there was a time when there was no God. And remember we said nothing can, in order for it to create itself, it had to be present to create itself. That law even applies to God. Now, we don't understand, we can't comprehend. That's something you believe by faith. Without faith, you can't please God. Folks, there's things that we don't understand that's in the book, the Bible, and it's perfectly understandable not to comprehend what's being said. You dig deep, you find out the answers. But God's existence has always been. If he's not always existed, he can't be God. Because that means he would have to have been created by something, even if it was himself. That means there was a time without God, and that's just not truth. Now, let's move to evolution. Evolution basically says that after the Big Bang happened and everything was created from nothing, there was all this mass, planets, whatever you want to call them. And basically, the rain, which we don't know where it came from, I guess it was just created with the Big Bang. It began to fall because anything with mass has gravity. So it began to fall towards these planets. Let's just talk about Earth, okay? The rain fell on Earth. It created a water puddle. And then they say there was a catalyst that started life. Something catapulted nothing into life. Folks, we cannot take nothing and make life out of it. You have to have something to make life. Okay, we're now back into the law of non-contradiction. You can't just poof life into existence. It can't happen. But they say the catalyst was lightning. So lightning struck water and poof, life happened. Now, we cannot recreate this. We cannot take a puddle of water that absolutely has no life in it, no organic matter. It's just rock and water. All right? Shock it with enough electricity to equal a lightning bolt, and life just poof in that puddle. It can't happen that way. But let's say it did. Lightning comes, hits that, we get a little bacteria or amoeba or paramecium or something, and through millions and billions of years, because we add time to make anything possible. If you just say, over millions and billions of years, all of a sudden now we think, well, that's possible if it took that long. Nothing's changed. But anyway. Over millions and billions of years, this amoeba, paramecium, whatever it was, decides, I don't like my current state, so I'm going to change myself. Now, let me make sure that we understand each other. I believe in microevolution. So there's microevolution and macroevolution, and I believe I've got this right. If I've got them backwards, please forgive me. Macroevolution is chimpanzees became humans, or frogs became chimpanzees, or fish became frogs, or paramecium became fish. They totally changed. Microevolution, I do believe in, all right? Now, you say, what's the difference? Okay, look at a bird. A bird is a bird is a bird is a bird is a bird, okay? They're birds. Some have evolved with a very long beak. Some have evolved with different color feathers. Some have evolved with different hands, okay, to catch prey or cling onto a bush or whatever. There's little microevolution that has happened in those animals. I agree 100%. But it's not macro. It's not from one species to another. But let's say it did happen that way. You get this paramecium. He all of a sudden decides, I want to be a fish. He, over millions of billions of years, under his own power, changes himself from a paramecium to a fish. Or let's say an eel. And then the eel decides, I want to be a fish. And over more millions and billions of years, it changes again into a fish. And then from a fish, it decides, I don't like the water. I want to be on the land. There's more food on the land, which, where did that food come from? And it decides, okay, I'm going to start walking. Well, it starts walking. Well, guess what? It has gills. And it can't survive on the land where there's air. So now it has to develop lungs. Now, I think we do have a creature that has both gills and lungs. And they'll all cite that this is the missing link in here. And we'll talk about missing links in just a minute. But anyway, so this fish decides, you know what? I'm not getting around fast enough. Well, let me back up. He says, I'm on the land. I no longer need gills. I'll get rid of these gills because I really don't need them anymore. He alters his body of his own free will, power, energy, and intellect. He gets rid of his lungs. That'd be great if we could do that with cancer, right? Let me just get rid of it. And now it's gone. Be great. So then this fish now has lungs, but he's only got 2 legs. He decides, I want 4 legs. So now he crawls into what looks like he modifies himself over millions and billions of years into what looks like a lizard. And then the lizard says, I don't like this. I can't reach up. I want to stand upright. And the lizard, under his own power, intellect, free will, and energy, changes himself to walking upright. And then he says, well, this isn't good enough. I need to be able to climb up in the trees and hang from the trees. And he goes through and he turns himself into a monkey, chimpanzee, or whatever. And then he says, I don't like this either. I want to grow into something more, higher on the food chain. And he turns himself into a human. Well, there's a lot of problems with this, okay? First of all, that took millions and billions and billions and billions and billions of years, yet the fossils in the earth are basically non-existent. They're happy if they find a tooth that they can build a whole person and culture around, all right? They'll say, oh, this was the tooth of whoever man, and he lived here, and he did this, and he made fire, and from a tooth, they get all that. So here's the bigger problem. You remember that paramecium I told you about, how he turned into an eel or a fish or a lizard, and then the lizard he was on the land. Folks, it's more difficult than that because those animals, once you get out of paramecium, once you get into like a reptile or something, they're not asexual. In other words, they have to have a mate. So as they evolved into an eel, the eel had to also separate, had to mate with something. So you had to have two parameciums turning themselves both into eels over millions of years. But you had to have sexual relations to continue the species. Now you're adding a whole new degree of difficulty, because now it's not just one animal crawling out of the ocean, it's two. And they have to have a sexual relation to create each other, to make each other. Folks, the odds of evolution, the faith you need to believe in the Big Bang Theory and evolution, takes more than you need to believe in God and that He made things the way He wanted them made. Now, there's all kinds of videos out there about how Darwin's chart that he made, you know, how everything in the embryo stage and all that stuff all looks alike. There's all kinds of videos out there exposing that as a lie. Those photographs were all manipulated to satisfy the agenda. There's tons of videos out there. There's also tons of videos out there that explain the fossil chart and how they use carbon dating and how bad carbon dating is. There's all kinds of videos out there. You can find a video out there right now, unless it's been scrubbed. I saw the video where a scientist discovered dinosaur bones with pliable flesh still on it. Yeah. How is that happening if millions and billions of years ago this animal died? How it still has pliable flesh on it? It can't happen. They scrubbed that and destroyed that woman. They destroyed her science career. You could look that video up. Folks, but we have even a bigger problem. And it's this right here. That little amoeba turning into a lizard and then a fish and then an upright lizard and whatever doesn't tell you how plant life evolved or got here. Where did the plants come from? Did they evolve? Did they just poof into existence? I don't think I've even heard of an evolutionary chain for plants. How did a turnip plant become a coconut tree? Folks, there's so many problems with evolution. Evolution and our origins only in science without God is strictly made to get you to think you don't owe God anything because He doesn't exist. He didn't make you. He's not real. That's what this is designed to do, and it has been very effective for people who want to run from God. Folks, you can only run from God for so long. All right, folks, so we're going to end this video right here. I urge you to go on to video number 2. We get into, now that we've established that God created everything and that God created us, this changes the light on humanity. And if you don't think it does, you need to watch videos 2 and 3. So that's it for number 1, folks. I hope to see you again in video number 2 here at the Alabama Woodsman.